It's time now to look at stories making the headlines on Nigerian newspapers, and I have with me in the studio Political Technocrat Dr. Dayo, Kayode, and Public Affairs Analyst Dotun Ojon. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
It's good to be here. I thought you would clap for Veronica this morning upon all your listening off
clap for me for what I'm doing my job now.
No.
Is it because I said I appreciated our glasses?
It's okay. All that will be behind the scene, please. All right, let's head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the first newspaper. No attempt to shoot down Buhari's plane. NAF is speaking there. You find all of the details of the story on the pages of the first newspaper. All right, to the blueprints now. In one voice, Igbo traders, residents say, enough of this. We've lost so much to sit at home. In one voice, Igbo traders, residents say, enough of this. We've lost so much to sit at home. All right, you find details of the story on the pages of the Blueprint newspaper. To the Daily Trust, 18 months after Buhari's directive, Orosai reports still stock. 18 months after Buhari's directive, Orosai's report still stock. To the Guardian newspaper, ghosts of hashtag EndSARS haunts federal government's policies on power, petrol subsidies. LCCI estimate losses at about 700 billion naira. Economists say over 1 trillion naira lost to mayhem. Insurers settled 5.4 billion naira hashtag EndSARS claims. Private sector government yet to recover from hashtag EndSARS, says ex-LCCI boss. To the Nation newspaper now, Secondus Anyanwu deepens PDP pre-convention crisis. Secondus Anyanwu deepen PDP pre-convention crisis. You find all of the details on the Nation newspaper. To the Nigerian News Direct, APC Congress and Mosun Aregbesola, others risk suspension over parallel state Congress. APC Congress and Mosun Aregbesola, others risk suspension over parallel state Congress. To this Nigerian newspaper now, ripples over election officers, APC Congresses of confusion, a factional chairman in Lagos, Ogun orders, party congratulates winners. And the Punch newspaper now, APC parallel Congresses, Amosu Aregbesola may lose out, party to back governors. It's the practice to respect incumbent governors. They are party leaders, national caucus member. Illegal congresses won't be recognized. APC speaking there. Mass defection looms, says Muiz Banire. All right. To the Business AM, Nigeria on fiscal cliffhanger over revenue gap, expenditure shortfalls. Details on the pages of the Business AM. And to the Business Day now, Nigeria sinking as petrol subsidy mounts. Nigeria sinking as petrol subsidy mounts. To the Vanguard newspaper now, Congresses, APC, PDP crippled by crisis. Don't bring party down with selfish interest, APC wants members. Will resolve issues arising from state congresses before national convention, PDP. Confusion as APC gets 3 state excos in Akwa Ibom. All right, you find all of these details on the pages of the Vanguard newspaper. Now to the Nigerian Tribune rather. Masterminds of parallel APC Congress is in trouble, as party secretary says parallel Congress not in consonance with party constitution. Any Congress held outside one supervised by national officers in Oshogbo, a charade, Elegbele speaking. Don't impose leaders on us, Bauchi APC once. Details on the pages of the Nigerian Tribune. To the Abuja Inquirer, road crashes. Abuja ranks second nationwide, accounts for 8.4% of accidents, FRSC. All right, gentlemen, this week we will be commemorating the hashtag EndSARS protest, 1 year. and we recall what transpired during the period. It started as a peaceful protest at the beginning, but then again it was hijacked by hoodlums, where we saw various properties attacked, and for which TVC was one of them. We saw police stations looted, burnt down, so many issues. We saw the BRT buses. A lot of persons will say that, or as it is rather, Lagos State had a major share of what happened with regards to the level of destruction of properties and all of that. And then there were also the situation of lives being lost. Some people, you can see pictures there. This was the protest initially. It was peaceful until we began to see what we saw. Some protesters were attacked, some persons injured, some killed, and so many things happened. 1 year on, and now these protesters are coming out to say that we want to commemorate what happened. But there are those who are saying no, because it might go the way it went at the time. And there are those who are, some of the protesters are saying, if we can have congresses, for instance, have some other gatherings, why were they not hijacked? Why are we saying it is only because it is a hashtag EndSARS protest that it is going to be hijacked? But what side of the divide do you belong? Are you one of those who say that they shouldn't, go ahead to commemorate the hashtag EndSARS protest, or you are for Dr. Kayode?
I like the word you used, commemoration. Like, okay, as I am now, let me also commemorate my commiseration with TVC for that period when so many properties here were destroyed. I never even knew that we were going to discuss this now. When I was coming, I was passing through Beggar. I knew that area where they normally park BRT buses. I could see some people, do you understand, waiting for buses, to catch buses and all that. To say those ones were there, all those, that population wouldn't be. I was now thinking, for goodness sake, what has EndSARS got to do with burning off all these buses? What has EndSARS got to do with it? What has EndSARS got to do with burning off that one at Oyigbo? Because I also saw that one at Oyigbo. Killing Mimi. Do you understand? This was a particular scenario in this country that should not be allowed to pass by like that. We should always be remembering it so that we can learn a lesson.
But there are those who say we shouldn't, but we shouldn't remember.
Because they don't know. They are talking about protest. It's not protest. It's about commemorate. It's about you use one word just now. Commemoration. Just as we always commemorate that Abiola election as the most fairest and well accepted election. Just as we always commemorate October 1st as our Independence Day.
9/11.
I mean, it's so. I don't want to use. I mean, look at some people saying they cannot. Does commemoration means protest? Now, some people are even arguing the protest did not have
a leader.
And that is where government is allowing somebody like me to blame them. There is no legbe that is dancing on top of water that doesn't have somebody drumming for it underneath the water.
Interesting.
In Yoruba, they say legbe to jolojo mi nkan kan lulu fun labe odo. That is that small flies that dances on top of water. There are some people drumming for it underneath. Government is supposed to have moved ahead of these people, ahead of this period, to identify those leaders.
All right.
They should have called, for instance, they along the line, they identified some people that money was passing through their accounts. They identified some people talking on their behalf.
All right.
Especially my brother, They're supposed to have even called my brother, Femi Falana, SAN, to talk to him, please. What are the problems? And that is why I tagged what has been happening in Southeast as idiocy of government. Because they have refused to go deep down into why are these people asking for Biafra state, so that they can now give it to them, and then all these things will stop. Nobody is saying they want to demonstrate, but commemoration. Let it be commemoration. Let us remember it.
Let's get Dotun's perspective to this matter. Perhaps he is on the side of, you know what, stemming from what happened last year, let's just commemorate it silently and learn our lessons.
They will go to churches, they will go to mosque to pray.
Where do you stand?
I think standing on the path of those who think the event and the happenings of that year should not be commemorated would be an injustice to the people.
Right.
And there must be a clear definition of what really happened, so that we do not have a false picture of what will happen. Now, the EndSARS really led to the destruction of property, no doubt about that. But we must also know that it was not the EndSARS protesters that wreaked the havoc on Lagos. It was not. And it was a product of the fact that government over time, I remember I was part of the voices that started this EndSARS of a thing, because you know I had a relationship with the police. I started what we called Police Youth Connect. The idea was that there was too much of a noise about police brutality in the community. Incidentally, it was October 1st, about 2 years ago, and we had it here in the compound of TVC. I brought the leadership of the police and some select youth leaders together. Let's talk about our problems. We never knew that the issue of EndSARS would happen. But after that, after the meeting, nothing happened. It was the same thing in Abuja. There were people who engaged the government. There were youth leaders who engaged the government as to the continuous brutality of government. So I think the only step that was ever taken was when the vice president became the acting president and he made the pronouncement, and after the president came back, the pronouncement never heard and everything went back to normal. So I think it was the silence of government that led to agitation of the youth, that led to EndSARS protest. Now it was the process of the agitation that the hater of Nigeria took advantage of the entire thing. So it is an injustice to say that those people who protested peacefully, those people who gathered together, who were making agitation, madam, people could no longer carry their laptop under the bridge in Oshodi.
Even phones.
In a productive, what did Mark Zuckerberg call this place energetic nation? In a productive and energetic nation like Nigeria, having dread suddenly became an issue. In the 21st century, where the only thing that people know how to express their innovation is by the way they dress, suddenly that became an issue. And the government was quiet. And I've said it repeatedly, that you can't continue to operate a 19th century template and want to have a 21st century solution.
Right.
The best you will have is a 20th century solution, which is what this government continuously has. There's a disconnect between the thinking pattern of a 21st century man and the reality of government projects, program, and policy. Because of this disconnect, they cannot understand why are they agitating. It is not the fault of people in government. They cannot understand. Because the bridge over the time has not been bridged. And what is the bridge? There's a gap between how a 21st century man is thinking and how their government is interpreting their innovation and their thought.
Right.
That is what led to where we are. And now the government thinks, again, we went back to our 19th century thinking. That's government. And they think, oh, the only thing we can do, okay, as they want to commemorate this day, the only thing is to deploy police. It will resort back to violence again. It will resort back to violence. What are they supposed to do in a normal community? You have seen that the level of agitation. In fact, it is even worse now than last year. You know why? The level of poverty last year was so low. It was lower than what we're having now. No. Getting food on your table last year was easier than the reality of what we're having now. Police engagement with people, as at last year, was even better than what we're having now. Despite the fact that they may change, just go out here, cross to the other side. You will see them as if they are going to war. I was driving past, they ran and came to the road, and they were doing all manner of things. That is the kind of police we have now. So if care is not taken, I am giving you a societal prophecy now that what will result from government confrontation of those people who will come out on the 20th of October 2020 will be worse than what happened. Because now I'm expecting a situation that you will understand all these things that I've talked about. Madam, this is the first time you will go out of your gate and you will smell poverty. As in not seeing, smell. You can smell it. It is evident everywhere. And nobody has a reason to live again. Everybody is willing to die. So what are they supposed to do? They are supposed to provide security for the protesters, not to stop them. When you provide security for these people,
you ensure it is peaceful.
You ensure it is peaceful. It becomes exceedingly difficult, if not practically impossible, for the elements in our community to hijack it. Let me round off with this as we continue. In every community, there's always the 10% principle. Either 10% principle of those people making money, or 10% principle of those people who want to commit crime. You cannot take it away from any community. We have it in Nigeria. Now, what's the duty of government? The government will rally the entire 90% against the 10% that are willing to commit crime. Now, when you are now dividing the 10%, and you don't even know where you stand, and your agencies, the agent of government, are criminals, so to say. They are criminals. These are people who lead people to ATM to collect their money. Is that not crime?
So the fact that they didn't have a leader, because one major issue for a lot of persons who have been speaking on this matter is the fact that they didn't have people leading them. There were no clear-cut leaders of this protest. Let me just quickly begin with you, Dotun. Do you think that that was a loophole that also allowed for the protest to be infiltrated at the time?
No, the government has this principle of always, the greatest power the government always has over the time in Africa is the power of money. And they think that, oh, money can solve every problem. So once they identify somebody as the leader, that's what they will buy the person over. And this generation was very strategic. I contested the election. The strategy of politicians in power became so clear to me that these people, once they have a problem that money cannot solve, they don't have any other solution. So it was not a product of in fact, it became problematic for the government because there was nobody to bribe. There was nobody to talk to. They don't have leaders, and they were coordinating. People were bringing out food. People were sending in money. People were willing to give the people that are reluctant to give offering in church were willing to put their money to feed during EndSARS protest.
Right.
It is the failure of government, and we must not allow that failure to repeat itself on the 20th.
Yeah, you wanted to say something.
You see, between you and me, if our government, they're supposed to have identified some people within the EndSARS protest community. Haven't identified with them. They were even supposed to be the one to say, let us join hands together and do a commemoration. If you say, let us join hands together and do a commemoration, it becomes difficult for anybody to come around and say, okay, we want to hijack this. So not until when government decides to look and think with the people, look and think with the people, they will always be having this kind of imbroglios within our society.
All right, that will be a fine place to leave the conversation this morning. Thank you, Political Technocrat Dr. Dayo Kayode and Public Affairs Analyst Dotun Ojon for your time on the program.
Thanks for having me.